that everything is running live now.
Go check.
I'm gonna give everybody kind of who's gonna be participating or listening in the opportunity to kind of get in here. So I'm gonna give it about 5 minutes, and in the meantime, I'm just gonna play some music. Why the fuck not? All right. Well, I mean, that's taking a minute to load. So I guess what I should start off by doing is introducing myself for anyone who isn't already familiar with me and the work that I do. My name is Amanda Fedrick. So I'm originally born and raised in Mesquite, Texas, right outside of Dallas. For those of you who may not be familiar with the area, we're just like a little suburb of Dallas, right on the edge. I was born in 1988. I'm 31 years old, 32 going on this year, and have been essentially working with dogs for 90 to 95% of my professional career. Hi, Krista. Thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to type in any questions that you have, and I'll happily answer them to the best of my ability. But I initially pursued a degree in art. I do have 2 art degrees. Found out that that wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do for a living, although it is one of my passions. And as you can see behind me, there's some artwork. It's just all around the house now. I just kind of do it for me. But the dog training is definitely something that has become the forefront and the center of my focus for the last year and a half. I have, can you turn that down? I have worked as a kennel technician or veterinary technician. I have worked in doggy daycare and boarding facilities, and now am focusing more on the behavioral aspects of dog communication and behavior modification. I do positive reinforcement training, and for any of you that are not aware, there are absolutely different types of training styles out there. So I use positive reinforcement, which basically means that you are giving a reward for good behavior. So if you would like to see a behavior repeat itself, then you reward for that behavior, and you downplay, ignore, or discourage other bad behaviors. But you never use fear, intimidation, or pain as a motivator to get a dog to do what you want it to do. So essentially, it's kind of hard for some people to wrap their brains around that. And why I believe that that is so is because as humans, we're very much raised in a society and an environment where negative reinforcement is the primary method of communication and behavior modification. And hi, Lauren. So good to see you, that you're here with us tonight. But basically, so as people, we tend to get punished when we don't do things correctly rather than rewarded when we do them well. So, for example, you don't really get rewarded for driving the speed limit. It's just something that you are expected to do. And if you do not obey the speed limit, then you get a ticket. Nobody is very excited about that. But that's negative reinforcement. So when you have performed a bad behavior or undesirable behavior, then you are penalized. Something is taken away from you. So we disobey the speed limit and money is taken from us. And so I feel like as adults, we often tend to raise our children with this same mentality because it's simply the way that the world works for us. However, science has proven that positive reinforcement training, rewarding for good behavior, is a more effective and more humane method of correcting bad behavior. So as a trainer or a parent if you're engaging in positive reinforcement behavior modification for your children. It really forces you to constantly analyze how you are communicating. So if you are not communicating effectively, training is not going to go well. It requires both the trainer and the trainee to be effectively communicating with one another. So I feel like it causes the trainer specifically to do a lot more introspection. We have to really analyze our own motivations for doing what we're doing and engage with the dog to determine whether or not it's an effective form of communication. So it's the least rewarding for the trainer in terms of our more primal or baser instincts. With other training methods, say like compulsion training, where you may use fear, pain, or intimidation as a motivator to get a dog to either stop a bad behavior or to perform a different behavior. There's always an element of gratification for that trainer in punishing another their trainee. So whether that be a kind of primal sort of dominance, whether that be the pleasure of denying something, either a treat or some kind of positive experience, there is something to that mentality that we as people definitely benefit from being the punisher in that circumstance to a point. So when we do positive reinforcement training, essentially you have to think about it a lot more. You really have to consider your approach with a different kind of mentality. So I find that a lot of people struggle with the patience aspect because there is a lot of that. You have to have a lot of patience to be a dog trainer. Doesn't always go the way that you want it to, and sometimes the results that you will get are interesting. So again, every point that I'm working with a dog, I have to consistently be looking at this dog for feedback about my behavior. What am I communicating, and what behaviors am I encouraging or enabling by my behavior? So where I struggle with some of the clients that I've worked with in the past is their inability to also see these same things, and they will enable their dog to continue these bad behaviors or even encourage it, worst case scenario. So it's just as much about like people analyzing their actions and motivations as it is about communicating with the dog. So basically positive reinforcement training, that's what I professionally engage in. I've been doing a lot of leash walking, leash training lately. I've been seeing that as a very common need in our area, which I totally understand. We have a lot of people in the area who live in apartments, who live in small homes, townhomes, or condos, who don't have regular access to just, a backyard or a safe play space that is isolated. We have dog parks popping up all over the place, which in theory sound like a great idea. And there are many times when the dog park can be beneficial for your dog. However, I find that more often than not, there's always a member at the park who's not quite as attentive or being as responsible or aware of their animal as they should, and that can cause problems. Krista is asking if I think clicker training can work on both a 2 and a 10-year-old pitty mix. Absolutely. I think that clicker training is basically one of those things that has to be super consistent. You have to really dedicate to making that a new form of communication. If you've never done clicker training before, it's really not so much from your average training process where you reward the dog for good behavior. The clicker allows you to be more specific with the timing of your reward. So you can pinpoint more exactly what the appropriate behavior you're wanting them to perform is. Sometimes I see people get these dogs that start what we call chaining their commands. So a lot of people teach sit first and then down. So some people will go to ask their dog to sit, and the dog will automatically go down to the ground in a lay position, which is not what we really wanted. Although a lot of people will still reward that behavior because essentially it's fixing the problem of the dog jumping up or being present in a space where they're not allowed to be. So what we have, the clicker allows us to mark the exact moment that the dog has performed that command, and regardless of age, that can be hugely helpful for the dog to essentially understand exactly what it is that you're asking for. So if you're having trouble communicating verbally, because there is a verbal delay in what we say. So a clicker is, and that's it. And immediately when they hear that sound, that's a marker. As far as verbal commands that we tend to use otherwise, good boy, good job, yay, some of those can take a little longer to say and can maybe not be so time specific, but the clicker really helps solidify exactly what it is that you're looking for and can just make it a little easier to communicate between you and your dog. Like, that's what I wanted, thank you so much. And that can progress your training a lot quicker than just using a verbal communicator. I'm a huge fan of using multiple reinforcers. So you have conditioned reinforcers, which are things that we teach our dog that are good. Like the words or phrase, good boy, good girl, doesn't mean anything to your dog until you start pairing it with either a treat, which is like an unconditioned reward. There's no sort of convincing that I have to do to my dog to let them know that food is a good thing. Inherently, their instincts tell them that this is a good thing. So when you give a treat, it's an unconditioned reward. When you do something like a verbal marker, it's a conditioned reward. They have to learn that that means good or bad, negative or positive. It looks like we have another question from Cindy. How do I stop my puppy from chewing and eating sticks? That's a really good question. So dogs naturally have an inherent inclination to chew, and there are many dogs that have inherent destructive tendencies that can be really problematic. Typically, I don't worry too much about chewing on the sticks unless they're actually just ingesting all of the wood. Especially for our younger dogs, they're potentially still teething and growing into their jaws and their bodies in general. They're going to express some of these tendencies, and we want them to express them in healthy and safe ways. So if they're ingesting these sticks, I would see more of a problem with it. But if they're just chewing to relieve like teething, pains, or anxiety in general, it's not typically a huge issue. If your dog's dragging them inside through your doggy door, that's a whole different issue. And I would address that separately from the chewing on the sticks. In addition, you can give them other things to chew, like better options than sticks. So something that tastes better, that is more fun, that you have encouraged more heavily is going to have a lot more draw and a lot more worth in terms of chewability to your dog. So we can do a couple of things, which is remove the sticks from their environment, which is harder, easier said than done. Or we can highly reward them for chewing on other things and giving other things their attention. And we can do that through enrichment activities to help kind of narrow down some of the anxious energy that they may be expressing through this chewing process. Or, like I said, presenting them with a higher value toy. So let's see. Lauren says, I have a dog that always howls. He howls when he's outside, inside, on a walk, when he's running around. I've taken him to the store and he barks at everything. He's an older beagle. Oh, okay. How can I approach and train him so he doesn't always need to bark? Well, awesome. So beagles are talkative. Our hounds tend to be. I mean, they were certainly bred to communicate with us in such a way. I would definitely recommend having more controlled positive experiences while out. One of the things that I utilize as a kind of trick whenever I'm walking a dog who may have reactive tendencies either to other people or to other dogs when we're out walking. One of the things that I do to help kind of control that behavior is to cut off their line of sight. So if my dog and I are walking and my dog's in the heel position and sees another dog and starts barking, I will turn and face my dog and place my body in between my dog and that distraction. Especially if they're very heavily reactive, we want to provide a type of barrier. And we want to regain their attention. So clearly they've seen something else. It's very distracting or attractive or exciting, and they want to engage immediately. A lot of people regularly engage their dogs in excited manners when we first see them. So like if we've been gone at work all day and we come back home, and when you walk through the door, it's like, what's up, man? You're the best. Your dog's super excited to see you. Who doesn't want that kind of reunion with their pet every day? It makes you feel super awesome as a human because, like, obviously somebody's super stoked to see you, so that's exciting. And it's always positive. It's kind of a positive feedback loop in the way that you both get so excited to see one another that it seems very normal and acceptable form of communication for the two of you. But what that does is it kind of ingrains this idea that that's how your dog should greet all people. And eventually, if they don't have enough like canine socialization, they'll start to greet other dogs in that manner too. Now, I will say, I don't know if you've ever been approached by a very excited person, but it is a nerve-wracking experience, okay? If somebody's just really excited and their energy level is up here and they approach you, you immediately have a hesitancy to engage with them because you're not on the same level as them. And this is very much true of dogs. They can't just be super stoked and excited to meet everyone because that's not conducive to healthy dog interaction. And it's not really conducive to healthy dog-human interaction when you're talking about terms of meeting strangers and new people. So I would say that there's probably more going into that than just the seeing strangers and getting super excited. There's probably other ways which we can kind of de-escalate the activity of meeting a new person or a new dog. And one of all those other things is tandem training. So working in a space with another dog, with both dogs on leash, where they never actually engage physically with one another. The whole point of that exercise is for them to understand how to focus and be responsive to their trainer and walker while other dogs are around. So if we can de-escalate the situation of meeting someone new or seeing another dog, you're going to have much better results, and you can really start solidifying your leash walking training once you get over that initial reactivity. All right, so a question, my dog jumps on people mostly when they come in the door. How can I correct that behavior? I see this one a lot. So it kind of really goes back into what I was just talking about a little, is that this high energy frame of mind whenever anyone walks in the door. And that can sometimes be defensive of the territory, or it can be something that's just an excitable dog wants to meet new people. And we have both of those in my household, so I've seen this dynamic play out. What I always recommend is, if you can create a physical barrier, then that's the best way to start approaching the desensitization at the front door. So you want to initially start out training by ringing the doorbell, playing sounds of doorbells ringing. We can help our dogs become less sensitive to those sounds and situations by breaking them down. So if we can get them desensitized to the audio of people knocking on the doors, of people ringing the doorbell, of there being noise at that front door in general, just activity, if we can desensitize the audio, then we're one step closer to that dog being able to function when there's an actual person there. So we have to basically include the front door in more average, normal activities in which there's no real exciting factor. So if we can allow the dog to get used to the idea of doorbell ringing or somebody knocking on the door without having to go nuts, or maybe we can associate a different behavior with that cue. So instead of hearing the doorbell and going bonkers because there's definitely someone there, we can encourage the dog whenever they hear the doorbell to instead go to their crate for a nice frozen treat, and something that will give them a little, it will last a little bit longer. So a combination of desensitization at the front door with the events that typically happen at the front door, doorbell ringing, door knocking, door opening, and potentially someone stepping through. It's best if you have somebody that you know that can work on this with you. It's kind of a two-person job, and it goes a lot better if you have another pair of hands that are willing to just, you know, come in and help you out. If you have somebody that is willing to work with you and willing to follow your instruction to help train your dog, you're going to be 10 times more successful than if you're trying to reach training on your own. It is very important, I have found, that everyone involved with that dog has to be on the same page for training. So if you have, say, 4 people in the household, and one of them is not discouraging the dog jumping up and is like really happy and pets the dog every time they jump up, you're probably going to have a hard time keeping your dog from doing that in the future. So you really need to make it clear to everyone that engages with your dog that you're in the process of training and that you would like for them to respect the rules that you're setting or the boundaries that you're setting for your dog. I think that's incredibly important. So tell people that you're training. It's totally okay. I mean, we all have to train our dogs. And I know there's a lot of people that feel like this stigma with dogs that have to see a dog trainer. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. All dogs have to go through some form of training. Some of them are inherently better at communicating with people than others. And that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with a dog that struggles a little to communicate. It just means that we need to approach that situation a little differently for them. And it's the same thing we do for people that would struggle to communicate. We just approach the situation a little differently to make things go better for them. And if we have a little bit of consideration for that dog situation being in training, a work in progress, then we're going to see better results. So, all right, looks like we have a question from Amy as well. If I adopt a dog from a shelter, what should I expect? How do I introduce my dog to the new dog? What about my cat? How long does this process actually take? Very good question. So I do a lot of shelter volunteer work. I see this a lot with our adopted dogs. So we typically want to give a dog at least 3 full months to decompress from being in a shelter environment specifically. But there are a lot of times where the dog will need that much decompression from a foster home as well, because they're entering a whole new environment that potentially has all new rules, definitely has all new people, and it's just going to be a new learning process for the dog. So they have to find out kind of where they fit in this new group with this new family and what their role is, especially if you have like a working breed dog. It's very important that you consider their ability to find their role. They need a job or a task in order to be healthy, happy, fulfilled animals. And obviously, if we're adopting a dog, that's our intention, is to give this dog a happy, healthy, fulfilled life. So with the animal shelter dogs, we typically see a rule of 3s. So 3 days, 3 weeks, and 3 months. 3 months being the minimum amount of time we should be giving a dog to fully decompress and find their place and role in our household, coming from a shelter environment. So I see this often, is that we have people return dogs because their new rescue or adopted dog does not get along with their existing dog in the household. And typically when I see these returns for that reason, it's within the first week. And to that, I say this, is that we all need a little extra time to decompress and to get to know new people. Dogs are inherently social pack creatures, but so are people. We are pack animals. But not all of us want to be around all other people. That's just not the way we work. We have preferences in terms of the energy of these people that we want to be around, their personality types, and finding people who like to engage in similar activities. And so to think that all dogs are going to get along with all other dogs is kind of a flawed concept. However, I never expect dogs to just get along instantly. Like, that's kind of unreasonable. So we need to give them more time, and we need to give them more physical space. So when we initially bring a dog into the household, I don't recommend that you introduce them to your dog like face to face in a home in the home-based territory right away. You want to give these dogs an ability or some time to sniff, to be able to smell and get used to the presence of this other animal without having to directly engage with that animal at the time. So if we can make the area that we're introducing these animals in a more neutral territory, that's typically very helpful as well. And we want to make sure that they're always supervised. So we don't want to just let these animals loose and figure it out on their own. That doesn't always work out well, although sometimes it can. But to err on the side of safety, caution, and in order to not create a negative experience for these dogs, you need to take it a little slower than you think that you have to. So honestly, the best thing that you can do for a shelter animal is give them the time to decompress, and use that time when, like, your new pet and your existing pet aren't physically interacting with each other, when they're still getting used to each other, existing in the home in the same area. Use that time to do bonding with you as well. The dog's going to feel more comfortable, more confident if it has a bond with the human as well. And there's more trust that develops there, so that that dog then is more likely to listen to you and cue from your body language. And if you show confident, positive body language, hopefully that will influence that interaction as well. So, few tips. I'm going to take about a 5-minute break here, and I'm going to allow some more people to kind of jump in here. It seems like we still got some people that are joining, which is awesome. I know that it's a weird Friday night, so as people are getting off of work and winding down from their family time, they'll continue to add in. So again, about 5 minutes, and I'm going to just put on some music for you guys to listen to in that time frame, and then I'll be right back and we'll pick this up again.
This is Anissa Estrada, and I've put together an exclusive Fight Night
Do you take this mask that you're offering with it?
Honey, Mom, we're in the middle of this.
I just need to tell you, you're my Traceba reason. My reason for starting Traceba.
Oh my goodness, ads. All right. All right, so I'm back. Had a short break. Okie dokie. My dog is blind and pees everywhere. What should I do? All right, Kathy, I know your dog. So the dog that we're just talking about right now, her name is Scuzzlebutt. And she's adorable, little Shih Tzu mix of some kind, older rescue. And honestly, that's a really hard issue to address behaviorally, since we know that her issue is primarily age and medically related. That doesn't mean that there's nothing that you can do, but at this point, it's probably going to be more of a management process than it will be like a trainability thing or something that you can do to kind of assist her in pottying more normally. At this point, it's likely going to be as good as it's going to get now and potentially worse later. And none of that's good news, but as we all age, our bodies just don't tend to work the same way. What I would recommend is limiting the amount of house access that she has, and making sure that you always have a potty opportunity available for her, which is still going to be very difficult for her to manage if she can't see. Dogs do primarily experience the world through their sense of smell, which is a lot stronger than ours. They have millions of olfactory receptors and actually can operate their nostrils independently. Dogs experience the world primarily through smell. So being blind is not so much of a disability for a dog as it would be for a human. Humans primarily experience the world through visual, through sight. So when a human loses the ability to see, it drastically affects the way that we experience the world. It does still affect your dog, obviously. They can't see, but it's not in the same scope. So what I would encourage you to do is maybe scent her area, not just with her own smell, but maybe specific scents in the house that you can use that may indicate to her that she's in a place where she is able to use that bathroom. Use the bathroom without peeing on your rug or whatever. So basically, bottom line is I'd create more opportunities for her to use the bathroom in an effective way. So more potty breaks if possible, a smaller access to the house, so keep her in a smaller area where she doesn't have the ability to just pee wherever. And then also marking those areas with something that she can still potentially utilize as, a point of reference. So smells would probably be a great way to go with her. And that would be my recommendation, because again, that's a largely medical issue, and it's going to be very hard to approach it from a behavioral aspect, knowing that about Scuzzle. All right, let's see. Kip follows me everywhere. I don't mind it much because I know that it's just that she feels comfortable with me and wants to be with her person, but sometimes I would like to go potty alone. Is that a normal behavior? I've never had a dog follow me literally anywhere. It's very normal, very, very normal. And honestly, if you think about it, when we walk our dogs, we are consistently watching for them to go to the bathroom. We're picking up their poop. We're following right behind them with a ladle. We're up their butts and around the corner about the poop issue. It's part of having a dog and being responsible about their waste. Like the same way we're responsible with our waste, we go in our toilet and it flushes and it's not creating a waste in the house. We expect the same of the dog in the way that we know we're not creating waste in our front yards and in our neighborhoods. And obviously that affects our city as well, if we just leave waste around everywhere. I feel a lot of the time it's very much a learned behavior. So dogs don't inherently feel the need to watch us do our business. But when we make that such a strong and steady activity in our relationship with our dogs, it becomes normalized. So I think that there's an element of that. With Kip especially, there's probably some small level of anxiety and not wanting to be apart from her mom. So at that point, if you want to stop that behavior, you need to give your dog something different or better to do. So in addition to cutting off her access to the bathroom whenever you are in the bathroom, I would give her something to do. Give her a carrot stick in her crate and let her have that while you're in the bathroom, and just completely remove you in the bathroom as a point of focus for her. You want to give her something better to do, something that she's much more willing to focus on. And if that means quality time with another family member, it can mean a high value treat. It can mean a game that allows you to have 30 seconds to yourself to go to the bathroom. I'm a mom of a 12-year-old, and I certainly remember her being very young and not having the opportunity to spend the minute and a half that I needed to go to the bathroom on my own. And I totally feel the struggle. I do. It's become very regular in my house. It's not something that I fight anymore. It's just kind of the way that it is. We do occasionally have guests come over to the house that experience our dogs wanting to be their potty pal. And some of them are okay with that and others are not. But let's be honest, if they're in my house, they're probably okay with it. But again, it's just about taking that as being with you in the bathroom, just taking that out of the equation altogether. It's not an option because you're going to be denied physical access. And then I'm going to give you something better to focus on while I'm doing my business, so that we can get into a routine of me giving you a toy or this treat, allowing you to focus on it for 5 to 10 minutes while I do my thing. And you're going to be able to utilize that for more than just going to the bathroom. So anytime you have a period in the day where you just need 5 minutes to yourself, you can whip out that toy or activity, and it becomes something that you can give your dog to keep themselves busy for a little bit. We do a lot of enrichment activities in our house, and those are like the bomb at keeping the dogs occupied for like 10 minutes. And so those are typically low supervision activities. So we can do frozen treats in the Kong, something that's very safe. I don't have to monitor them specifically like while they're engaging in that activity. So I would definitely recommend you check out the Canine Enrichment. There's a Facebook group called Canine Enrichment. And it has a ton of good ideas as far as activities that you can give your dog to do, things that you can, DIY in the house that you typically have already available for your use. So I would definitely recommend checking that out and just trying a few games with her, engage a little differently, more mentally rather than physically. All right. So could you talk about the benefits of muzzle conditioning and generally how you do that? Yeah, absolutely. So muzzle conditioning can be beneficial for any dog, regardless of their level of aggression or not. There are a lot of reasons that people can choose to muzzle a dog. The most benefit that I've seen out of muzzle training is for dogs that already have an existing level of aggression towards other dogs or people. So we see situations in which case, like the question was asked earlier about maybe adopting a new dog and it doesn't initially get along with your dog. And we obviously don't want to cause fights, and we want these dogs to be able to engage with each other in a safe situation where we're not looking at a potentially life-threatening fight happening between these animals. And then, of course, the danger to the people that are then breaking that up and all of the rigmarole that comes after that. So you can allow dogs who might have a tendency to bite or snap to safely engage in an environment where they otherwise would never be able to generate a positive experience. So what we do is we remove the worst case scenario in a way. that dog biting or attacking another dog. And let's just be honest, biting is not the only form of attack or aggression that we see in dogs. It's certainly one of the more severe consequences of aggression in dogs, but it's certainly not the only problem. So you can't just allow your dog to wear a muzzle without thinking about the psychological implications that that's having. So for dogs, the primary way that they are able to defend themselves is with their mouths. They experience the world through their muzzle, primarily through the nose, and then everything goes in the mouth. It's like a toddler. They just pick it up and put it in their mouth. It's the best thing ever. And when you ask them what's in their mouth, God help you to try and get it back, right? So when we muzzle a dog, we are taking away so much from them. And we have to keep that in mind when we are approaching muzzle training. I never recommend it without consulting a trainer first, because you can create an environment where your dog feels helpless and incapable of defending itself. So you really have to generate a positive association with that muzzle, whether that be through high value treats or generating very safe, controlled, positive experiences. So again, in places where that dog may not normally be able to function without a muzzle, you can then give them the opportunity to generate positive experiences in a way that they could not do previously without the muzzle on. So that is where I see the most benefit, is allowing these dogs to have more opportunity to engage in different environments to generate more positive experiences in order to allow that dog to overcome either the fear or the defensive or the territorial tendencies that initially cause them to lash out and bite. So muzzle training, like I said, can be great. I always recommend that you work with a professional and somebody that has experience doing it too, when you decide that that's the path that you would like to take. All right. Our dog Denzel has a high prey drive and started out chasing all the kitties when we brought him home. What is the best way to get a dog acclimated to the presence of cats? So cats are a little more challenging in terms of their relationship with dogs than other dogs can be. And the reason that I say that is because there are a few people who understand how to properly introduce dogs and cats. A lot of people want to do it kind of similar to the way that they introduce dogs to other dogs. And that's just that you have to take it one step slower with the cats. And honestly, I find that typically the cats are the ones that determine how that whole relationship is going to work out. If the cat is open to associating with the dog, then you're going to have a much higher chance of success. If that cat has decided that they do not want to interact or engage with that dog at all, that's probably the best way to leave it. You know, when you have multiple animals in a household, you always hope and strive that they all get along. But sometimes they just don't want to interact, and that's okay too. We shouldn't be forcing interaction between animals that do not want to engage with each other. Denzel in particular he was an interesting case. So we took him in about 1.5 years ago. He was about 6 months old at the time, and we were told that he was incredibly cat aggressive. Like, he just couldn't be around other animals. I felt that there was a strong possibility that that assessment wasn't entirely correct. And so we went and picked him up as a foster. We have a household with 3 dogs and 3 cats. So it's a mixed basket of personalities here. And certainly we need to consider that. But Denzel in particular is very food motivated, and we very much use that to our advantage. He would ignore the cats in lieu of a very high value treat. So for him, a high value treat was anything that was kind of soft and meaty. It didn't even have to be like a lunch meat or a really special thing. But if it smelled strongly, for him, that was the biggest motivator. So I would do what we did, tandem training sessions in the kitchen, and I would have treats available for the dogs and for the cats. And at first, it was just about treating him when he looked at me rather than the cat. That's all it was. He was on a leash. He was kept on a very short leash so that we could just work on neutralizing that experience of being around the cats. Once he got better at ignoring the cats, we started using more cats at once, which 2 of our cats are very pro-dog. They are great. They know not to run from the dogs. They have great instincts when it comes to manipulating their canine counterparts. But one of our cats does not. He is special. There's something in his brain that just works a little differently, and that's okay. But he was not open to that type of training at all, and I understand those cats are definitely out there. So I think the best thing that we can do is to create an environment where the dog can be around the cat without having to engage with the cat. And a lot of people can achieve that by using baby gates and several other forms of physical barriers that allow the animals to see one another without being able to physically interact. Those are incredibly helpful. But essentially, it's going to take a lot of patience. There are some dogs that have an incredibly high prey drive, and it's very, very difficult to train some of that out because it is instinctual. It's what we've bred these dogs to do, and especially if you've got a purebred dog, like a herding breed or a terrier, you're going to see more of this particular issue, the prey drive with small furry critters that dart around. Desensitization is my best, my highest success comes with regular, active, consistent desensitization. So if we can allow them to see the cat 10 feet away that they can't get to and turn back to me and refocus on training, we've made progress that day. And then the next thing we want to do is the cat to be 8 feet away and we're maintaining focus. And then the cat can be 5 feet away and we're maintaining focus. Eventually, we're going to make it to the point where we don't need the leash anymore. The dog is focusing for their treat because they know they're going to be rewarded for not engaging that cat and for engaging with their human instead. So a lot of work every day, every single day, twice a day we worked on this. And Denzel is now able to be around the cats unsupervised. He will not chase them unless they actively try to engage him in play, which we discourage. Even still now, he's so much better. He will look at the cat and not engage. But again, we're not trying to put him in a situation to fail. We want him to always succeed. Training should always be a success story. We want it to be one of those things that the dog wants to engage in, bottom line. And as long as we continue to make that a positive experience, they're going to want to do that. So that was our approach with Denzel, and it has been very effective with him. It's okay. Come on. They're telling me that it is past dinner time and almost starving to death over here. And it looks like, I think that we may have wound this up pretty nicely. I'm really pleased with the amount of people that tuned in. I appreciate all of you taking your time to just hang out and have some discussion today. I've been thinking about doing this for a while. This is my first Facebook Live video, believe it or not. I know, like I'm 31 and I know. It's sad, but I'm just ashamed of my generation. But I do look forward to doing some more of these. I would like to make it a regular thing. So if you guys are interested, I will be happy to do one of these maybe next Friday again, make it a weekly event. And if you guys thought that this was helpful and informative, I would encourage you to please share the next event with your friends and family, anyone that you think that might be interested or could probably use a little advice. We all know one of those people that like, your dog is kind of, maybe you should listen to this video and see if it could, help you understand a few things a little better and develop a better relationship between you and your dog. So we all know at least one of those people. So tag them let them know that, you know, this is just some free information and a little bit of education, if you will. I strive to try and give back to my community. My community gives a lot to me. And I want to continue to educate and to spread good, scientifically proven information amongst the community of pet owners that we have here in the like Mesquite, Garland, Dallas, Wiley, Heath, whatever, Rockball area. So again, I really, really appreciate all of you taking the time out tonight, and I will look forward to hopefully seeing many of you back next week. Think on some questions that you might have, write them down, keep them, and I'll look forward to answering them for you on Friday. So y'all have a wonderful evening. I am about to go cook dinner.